Good morning. How are you?
Hey, Michael, doing well.
Hey, good
Good.
morning.
How are you? Good
Wonder
morning.
if we're gonna see the newlywed today or no?
Yeah, I was wondering about. He may still be honeymooning.
That's a long time
I
coming.
know he was going to skip last week because of that.
Right,
Oh,
right.
in a row is unforgivable.
Oh, yeah.
So happy New Year to you all. Hope
Same
your
to
New Year
you.
is well. See what's happening here in a little bit. We'll give them a couple of minutes.
We were there's something called a free. Let's see, free January or what is it? It's you're commit to not drink alcohol during the month.
Oh,
What do they call
really?
that term? I think it's free January. Anyway, so I'm going to light myself in a whole new world of non-alcoholic between the wines and the beers. And there's actually a bourbon, there's a vodka, and there's a rum that's all non-alcoholic. Kind of interesting.
I wonder what it tastes like.
The beer is actually pretty good, and the wine, it's kind of like
Grape juice.
I'm thinking grape juice, right? But it's actually tastes very much like wine. I mean, the alcohol part of it does add taste to it, but so it's those New Year's resolutions. You got to make them
Yeah.
easy to go with, right? So I want to be supportive.
Sure, all the health clubs and gyms are packed today.
Oh yeah,
That usually happens all the month of January, and then all of a sudden February hits and nobody's there again.
yeah.
It's the health club. It's a health club business model. Everyone signs up in January, with their New
All the
Year's
deals
resolution.
were in December, January back to full price.
Yeah.
And everyone signs up for a year, and then they go for the first month and two, and then health clubs collect the other 10 months, and no one shows. It's a great model.
I'm working with a nonprofit right now, and it just opened my eyes to a whole different business model, right? But one of the challenges is that majority of their income comes in the last 2 months of the year, right?
Sure.
So how do you feather that out, and how do you create more repeatable, more sustainable donations and whatnot? So it's fascinating to just get some exposure to that whole business model, because I've never really paid much attention to the nonprofit sector. I've done my fair share of volunteering, whatever, but never really gotten behind the curtain, if you will. But
I'm looking at your chart behind you, Joe. I'm looking at your chart behind you, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe. Pretty interesting. I see Clarity 1 and Clarity 2 in there. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So we're starting with the network of influencers, right? And then you work through the growth drive. Who are those influencers in the world? Ed and I were just meeting on Monday or last week about this. And then the 90 marketing event and introduce the tools. And we're trying to wrap in 90IO to this because we believe that that's a great tracking model. And then get the Clarity 1, Clarity 2 execution system. And then what is that? 75, know, love, and trust. Who those?
Hey, good morning.
75 people
joined the call today.
75 people that you know, love, and trust. Who are those folks? And then how can they help you advance?
Okay. We just wanted that. We just wanted to make sure that if you weren't, then we don't need to stay on. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, I think Ed is talking to George.
Yeah.
I was just talking to George. He said they were having a hookup problem. He's been having a hookup problem for the last 15 minutes.
Huh.
He said between his mouse and the internet, he doesn't know which is if it's the one or the other that's causing the problem.
So we have
George. I'll let you finish with that.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the things we've been doing is having cigar events, and it's driving some level of interest. I wouldn't say we got it figured out by any stretch of the imagination. We just gotta kind of keep on keeping on, and between the two of us, understand. I think we've identified a couple dud clients or dud CPAs, and also just people that aren't ready for the messaging and aren't really necessarily a good fit for what we have to offer. Because oftentimes we get a little, myself, for one, get a little over attached to an outcome that won't even come close to meeting our objectives, right? And they'll continue to waste our time, and they might take a meeting, they may take a phone call, but really, are they in our targeted sweet spot, been able to at least have some semblance of a leadership team that's ready for a transition, and they're mature enough to go there, right? So,
wow, there he is.
There he is on your
All
iPhone.
Right, guys. So software update, and for some reason,
I had the same thing.
I'm on my iPad,
this morning,
and my mouse doesn't work at whatever. So I'll deal with that. That's terribly frustrating. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and
Yeah.
congratulations.
Congratulations, right?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We it's great. It's really great. So thank you. I appreciate it. God bless. You know, in technology, I just rely on it. It never gives me a problem. And when it does, I typically know how to fix it. And this morning, I guess I should have, it's a life telling me I should have come to the office over the break and not just worked at home. Well, cheers, guys. Happy New Year. Everybody have a good time off or time away. There we go.
Well,
Dolphins.
Not most Dolphins. Forget Dolphins. Damn. But anyway.
Yeah. So, okay. I just dropped in. I interrupted the conversation. I apologize.
No, we were talking about that great board behind Joe, his Business Coach Joe board. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, Joe, you were talking about CPAs. I mean, I being a CPA myself, I've talked to a couple of smaller CPA firms, and there's just no traction. I don't know. They say yes, yeah, but they just don't have any inclination to even do anything about it. I think part of the problem is that they're so overwhelmed with the work that they have to do and trying to get that work done that they just see this as more stuff to do that just we don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the time. So they just,
it's crazy. And we see these firms talking about CAS and there's no, to my knowledge, there's no definition of CAS. So a firm, what we see is firms talk about advisory and talk about CAS, customer advisory, client advisory services, but they're really they're expanding the circle like this much. They're not getting involved in controlling margin and controlling profits, and they're not getting involved to the extent that they and I'm sorry, I'm on a rant, but that they could or should. I mean, CPA is incredibly intelligent, one of the hardest working professions out there, diligent, caring. They have the customer's ear. This is a golden opportunity, right? This is a golden opportunity, and yet even when the managing partner bangs their fist on the desk, as I've seen happen twice, and says, we're going to do this, nothing happens. And it goes, Mike, you've made the point, compensation. Ed, what's the term you use? Actualization?
The biggest problem that I find that is so many of the CPAs have only book knowledge. They don't have practical experience. And the benefit of having only worked for Price Waterhouse for 3.5 years in New York and having been in industry all the rest of my time, I have a completely different view on what can be done and the impact we can have on a business. And it doesn't destroy the CPA's relationship. Instead, it offers enhancements and continued increased advisory services that they can perform that we aren't going to do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, do you ever jump in and do any accounting work for any of your clients that you consult with? Or do you let their CPA do it?
No, I don't do it. I tell them I don't do it. But the thing is, I can tell you this, having been in the profession for over 40 years, is, and I'm going to generalize here, but most CPAs do not want to do this. They went to school, and I used to have arguments with my old partners about it, because I used to tell them, you got to go out there and try to get advisory work. And they said, well, no, we first of all, there was a big pushback against even marketing. We don't want to sell. We went to school to be accountants. We want to sit and figure things out and do spreadsheets and put the returns and financial statements together. And that's that's the argument. That's what I wanted to do. If I wanted to be a salesperson, marketer, I would have majored in something else. And so so you have this argument of, that's a lot of them. A lot of them think that way, and their personalities are that way as well, right? They're just very introverted. They like to sit and they like to figure shit out, which there's a role for that, but the people who get to the top, and most of the partner types, they're a little more, proactive and they're a little more outgoing, but then again, you can't get there if 80% of your people just don't have the desire, inclination, and will do everything they can not to.
Yeah.
You can't fire them, because if you get rid of them, then how are you going to take care of all the work they do?
That's right.
It's a catch-22, But no, I tried to do this with my old firm. I tried to convince them that we should be doing more exit planning work, right? I hadn't put together a business plan, and they just summarily said, no, we're not interested in that. And I think the reason for that is they do have transaction advisory work. They do transaction advisory work, but that's when someone is going to market. There's a transaction within 12 to 18 months that's on the table, and then everyone wants to jump in because they see there's something that's going to happen and close. But getting involved before there's something like that, like kind of like what we're doing with Clarity 1, Clarity 2, they just don't have the appetite for it because I guess they don't see monetization. They don't see money coming right away. It's a longer, it's a long engagement, right? And also they don't have the talent. It's hard for them to get the talent to do this kind of stuff. So, I talked to them and they just had no appetite for it. They just stuck with the transaction advisory work at the very end of the spectrum when people are going, their company, they want to go to market now. And then they come in and they do all kinds of Q of E, pre-sale tax planning, they get investment bankers involved, and that's where they want to play because they see there's a lot of immediate money to be made. But the other stuff that we do 5 years in advance, they just don't have an appetite.
It's really interesting when you put that, Mike, in the context of what we see happening in the market, and it's happening more and more. You have wealth advisory firms purchasing. Cerity just purchased there was a little roll up of CPA firms of local CPA firms, and Cerity came in and purchased they've purchased a CPA firm that's going under the Cerity banner. You have management consulting firms that are purchasing CPA firms because they're saying, well, if you guys are going to get into business advisory, and it's even easier for us to get into tax, providing tax advice and tax planning, and it's a natural extension for us. And then we have wealth advisory, RIAs purchasing CPA firms, management consultants purchasing CPA firms, and then we have private equity, right, coming in and purchasing CPA firms. And these market forces, it's going to be fascinating to see them play out. The CPA is not going away. It's a valued, important, relevant skill, but it's this wide, it's this wide. And it's going to be fascinating to see it play out. Do you guys see the same thing?
The need for audits or compliance and SEC filings for what the big large firms have to do, or even significant regional firms, that just entails so much time and generates so much billing that they don't see the benefit of working with the firms and developing this type of work, utilizing the talent they have. Because I think like you just said, Mike, they don't have the talent to let loose and work on these types of projects. And furthermore, they don't have the background to execute them. I mean, I can tell you that you walk into a business and watch how they get lost when they're looking at a company. I mean, I'm just looking at a CFO group right now working on a project, and I'm just amazed at what they felt was a priority of what they needed to put together versus what was really essential. I mean, this firm is doing $6 million in revenue projected for 24 to jump from 6 million to 8 million.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one payable creditor that's $600,000 that for some reason, somehow, when they were starting, because it's a food business, when they were starting and they were making product, they must have wasted product and everything, and now suddenly it's caught up to them. So they need to work themselves out of that cash flow. But they're at perfect cash flow right now. The contract CFO was trying to put together a cash flow and a balance sheet to account for this $600,000 liability that existed for over a year and a half. They dropped it all in last month. And it's a year and a half ago's issue. And so the current financials are just totally wrong. And when they present them to their lending institution, they're going to everybody's going to get all scared. We're saying, you can't use that data, guys, but this is common sense.
It's interesting. It's an interesting time, especially when guys like, Ed, you went into industry years ago. Mike, you've now left the traditional CPA role. And
well, George, I will say this too. I think another reason why they shy away from this kind of work, and Ed alluded to it, is that they're doing audit work, they're doing test work. audit or reviews for their clients, they have an issue of independence.
Yeah.
So they cannot be, they have to be independent of those clients. So they can't be doing what we're doing. I mean, it's hard for them. They could try, but then they start bumping up against independence issues, because if you're telling companies, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you're helping them implement these things, and then you're going in and auditing them, you have an independence issue.
Yeah, there's no question that you're right.
And I think that's another reason why these firms, if they're afraid to do it, because then they may bump up against independence issues, and then they may not be able to do the audit.
And hand in glove, a lot of when I think from a selfish perspective in terms of growth drive and the fact that as a small part, right, as a small part of what we do, we impute a value to the business. We calculate a value for the business. You end up with the CVAs and the ABVs and the ASAs inside an accounting firm saying, if it has the word value anywhere attached to it, that is our territory and we control it and you cannot do it. And they tend to be, these tend to be more senior, in my experience, more senior partners,
right,
who, for right or wrong, are saying, listen, we certify the value of the business. And for you to then come in with a potentially confusing service that says, well, I know Ed certified the value as $14 million. It's really 12, but we can help you grow it. You start having this political tension, and we will see how long. There's another credential that's under tremendous pressure is the CVA, the value analyst, and it's just going to be fascinating to play out. I don't have a crystal ball.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm finding, and that is the traditional CPA firms, the large ones that do a lot of the tax work for many significant businesses, they're realizing that if they do the business valuation on their own client, they often come into conflict because tax strategy is contra to business valuation. And so now I've got to make adjustments. How do I defend that to the IRS from a practical point of view?
Yeah.
And so I'm getting some valuation work coming at me from the regional firms who are realizing the value is going to be contra to what they're doing as tax strategy.
Well, and it's interesting, Ed, what you're saying there, because so if I'm the managing partner of a CPA firm, am I cutting off my nose to spite my face? There's everything right with the CVA, ABV work. I mean, it is good work, but it is often a one-trick pony, right? We're valuing this for this, that, or the other reason. And we're getting paid for that. And we have partners who have the credential and maintain the credential, et cetera. That's great. And partners and their staff. Terrific. And, I'm friends with Parnell Black at NACFA. It is a great program. It has value, no question. If I'm the managing partner of a firm and I'm saying we need to drive revenues, well, what if I didn't do, what if I cut that loose? Let's just put it that way. What if I cut that loose and said, hey, listen, you guys go be your own thing, or we're going to outsource it and retrain you. I don't know. But there's a lot more good to be done for a client, actual good to be done for our clients when we not only analyze the value, but when we advise them on maximizing the value of the business and all of the work that comes and all of the benefit, the return on investment that our client sees, the real good we do in communities from actually helping them take control and grow value. And I don't know, I'm getting kind of philosophical, but from a growing your firm perspective, yeah,
I've found that I've given up on CPA firms. I'm just not going after them. It's a waste of time. You're trying to beat, how many, I don't know, decades of culture that, needs to be overturned. Now, I guess, private equity firms and money management firms coming in and buying them, they'll change the culture, but because they have the money and they have the power. I just know it's a dry hole. I mean, most of them they're so buried in what they need to do now, and it's so much work that they have to do, and they're trying to find people that taking on something else like this they just don't have an appetite for it. But the ones I've met, they like it. They say, "Oh, this is really good, really nice." But then, they have, when I tell them, they give me, it's great. But then when it comes time to, hey, let's try to work on some clients together, you have them, and you'll certainly be involved, right? I tell them this is a team sport.
It's a team sport.
Team sport.
Yeah.
And they understand that. Yeah. But they just don't. And I think the other reason too, in my experience, has been a lot of them have been playing a role for years that their clients look at them as their accountant. So look, you're my accountant, right? So when I used to go to my clients and try to talk to about something that was non-accounting related or something outside my box, some of them would say to me, well, Mike, you're my tax accountant, you're my tax person. Why are we talking about this? So they kind of pigeonhole you, and they see you only as that. So part of the issue is now you have to reinvent yourself, and you have to say, well, I'm more than that. And a lot of people have a hard time with that because they've been dealing with you as that narrow focused person. But now you have to be looked at as something more comprehensive and wider. And a lot of them just don't see it. They don't look at you that way. They're
That's
so
right.
used to calling you about this tax issue and that, and how you can help. And now you're going to go off into a different ballpark. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. So you have that going on too.
But I
So
think you're absolutely right, Mike. And where I see success is when people go in and say, hi, we have a fractional CFO service and we'd like to talk to you about it. And when you put it in the fractional CFO wrapper, clients are like, oh, okay, now this may make some sense. It's going to play out. I'm going to challenge the leaders I'm going to challenge the leaders of some well-known CPA firms and simply say, hey man, we only want to work. I'm not going to waste your time, and I'm not going to beg you to to change. But if you are interested in changing, we would love to work with you, because
So let's break this down just a tad bit more. I like it to go to a party in which all the girls are lined up against the wall and all the boys over there are very inwardly focused guys. You come there and you're a connector, and you bring levity to the party. You bring a different way of interaction with your clients. And so you were allowed to be introduced to that party and get to that party. You can really stand out because you're interested in trying to have a different conversation that has been happening all along. So do you throw the baby out with the bathwater, or do we figure out a better way to interact with their firm? And could we have, like Bodine Perry, which is a local firm that we've done. Ed and I have gone to some mixers with them. True accounting firm. They've been growing like crazy, but been able to meet with several people that have been kind of hanging around. We went with USI, and they have a large database. So their clients come to their events, right? So all we need to do is be in the room. And by virtue of being in the room, we've got a good guy, moniker on ourselves saying, hey, we're factory approved to be here because we've established that we're a friend of the firm. So instead of always kind of trying to see them as your marketing arm, really it's more of a getting invited to their parties, and it's up to us then to identify the people that we want to talk to further. So
yeah,
you don't expect them to carry the water. I guess that's probably the learning that I'm hearing here. So they really have no interest in carrying the water. It's a conflict of interest. Culturally, they're not there. I mean, even from the root of, what they've done, from the experience and what they signed up for when college. So they're not doing the BD work for you. And yet they still have opportunities to interface with their clients, and we need to get invited to those rooms.
That's, it's minute 30. So I'm just marking that for the transcript so I can highlight this. Joe, you just made a fantastic point, because when we use Clarity One to do a CEO workshop marketing event, and the CPA firm is the sponsor of that event, then we, as exit planners, as business advisors, as growth drivers, we have a chance to help them expand their reach and relevance, expand their potential impact with the clients, and to open the client's eyes to opportunities to benefit from, to get a high ROI from the traditional services of the CPA firm, and to also work hand in glove. Mike says it all the time, and he couldn't be more right. You're so right. This is a team sport. How do we plan for the potential, the eventual monetizable value of this business? And that is where, I, Mike Desiato, I, Joe Lorenz. You guys are all CEPAs, right? And Mike is also a CEXP. We are relevant and doing things that complement what you do, CPA firm, and that your clients are. We need to jointly educate the client about jointly educate the client. And those CEO workshop marketing events trigger a lot of follow-up calls for that very reason. And so, Joe, I'm in. That's a long-winded, violent agreement with your point. We can, by educating the client, by bringing this methodology to the room, we actually highlight opportunities, and importantly, we prioritize them, and we say, hey, here's a priority list for work we can do to help you, Madam CEO, reach your goals. And there are people who aren't in the room whose advice you might want to get down the road: attorneys, marketing, etc. So, Joe, long-winded, violent agreement.
Well, just to add to that, and I'm just wondering, what we do, does that look like extra work for the CPA? And are you stirring up a need for services that would drive them away to perhaps using a fractional CFO and a more or less traditional relationship? So, I'm just thinking about it from their perspective, why they're so, obviously there's all to do with the culture, but more importantly, are you setting it up for them to search out alternative relationships in the accounting community that could very well be seen as, competitive or,
well, here,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm like jumping up my seat because, Joe, you're spot on again, but not surprisingly. So, defensible market. I'm a CPA firm. I have clients. Clients are very hard to win, right? And they sure are easy to lose, aren't they? So if I'm a CPA firm and I have a relationship with a client, someone is going to scratch this itch. Someone is going to show up. Someone is going to help this. At some point, the CEO, most CEOs are going to say, I want to exit. I want to grow. I want to make this thing easier to run. We know this to be true. There are only three things that CEOs ultimately want. And so you CPA firm are either going to do this for your clients. You're either going to help them. You're either going to be the godfather of this process, or someone else will. And if you think that if you take this relationship for granted, I mean, you're going to keep the tax work probably, but you have all this other entire rest of the richness of this relationship that you are seeding the ground on. You never seed ground in battle. You're right, Joe. you got me going. Second cup of coffee.
Yeah,
I think that raises that question that Mike mentions, and that is that the CPA firms like to stay there until they get that big bill opportunity during a transaction. Right. And the problem is they could make more money in an ongoing relationship than they'll ever make, and then on top of that, if they do get the big bill in for a transaction, probably better than 50% of the times, they lose the client at the end of the transaction because it just got picked up by a bigger firm.
Well,
but all this, George, this is, please, and I've seen this, all this, but what we're talking about them having to do is to make an investment, right? They need to make an investment in this kind of work. And I'm telling you, they don't look at, they're so short term in their thinking. I'm talking about the firms I've been with. All right.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
It's all about making money this year for the partners. Okay. Maximizing the profits this year for the partners. Now, if you're going to do what we're talking about, they're going to have to invest a lot of money in training and systems and hiring people. And it's not going to pay off right away. Right. So that's going to put a ding in short-term profits. They don't do that. I'm telling you, they don't do it.
I believe you. That's my experience, Mike. 100%.
No, it's just so narrow, and that's because partners they want to take all this money out. They don't leave a lot of money back in, and that's kind of why you see these private equity firms making inroads into CPA firms, is because the CPA firms, especially one I was with, the reason why they went with a private equity firm is that, they didn't have, given the demands of partners to take all their money out and not leave a lot in, that they couldn't invest. They couldn't invest back into growing the business because all the profits were taken out. So the private equity firm says, well, we'll give you all kinds of money. All right. So now, but I think that's going to change the way they're going to run. They're going to start making investments for longer term benefits. But traditionally, if they're not big four firms out, very different. But if you're talking about most regional local firms, it's all about current year profitability and maximizing it.
Exactly.
And they don't make a lot of it. If they won't hire someone unless they're so overwhelmed that they'll keep that person busy right away. Right
It's
away.
interesting. This goes to the difference between a shareholder and a partner. And
Right.
even though a partner is a shareholder, I get it. I'm an attorney.
There's
pigeonholing.
There's no investments. They don't invest for the long term. It's all short term mentality thinking, and that's probably another reason why a lot of them just don't do it. Because you're right. I mean, I think intellectually they see that, but then they're saying, well, wait a minute. Then I instead of me pulling out my $500,000 a year, I can only pull out 300 grand because I have to leave another 200 in. No,
never mind that 200 could be worth $1 million in a couple of
but
years.
it doesn't matter. But I need that. I've already, my standard of living is there. Now you're making me drop it. Trust me, it's just not going to happen. Now, but again, as I said, these private equity firms are moving in and saying, don't worry about it. We got the money.
Yeah.
Wait you see how you have to perform to continue
Well, they're
earn
gonna,
at the level you've been earning.
Well, they're gonna change the culture, and people are either gonna, adapt and get on board, or else they're gonna leave. It's gonna happen. So, but that will change the whole. That'll change the whole culture of the profession. It'll change because of this, and this is going to force it to change, because I think, as you point out in your book, right, George, the first couple of pages, right? How many CPA firms? What was their growth rate? 0%. Yeah.
0.
So, what is the net growth rate of these firms? It's 0. Okay, because they don't make investments to grow. It's just current profitability, and they often operate very thinly. They don't have a lot of staff. They're kind of always catching up. They deliver things late. They can't find people, and they lose more. They have a big business development departments, and they bring in a lot of work, but they lose just as much. So it's like it's a vicious circle, and I'm just glad I'm not part of it anymore. But they don't spend a lot of money on recruiting and maintaining and they don't spend a fraction of what they spend on business development on recruiting and maintaining or retaining good people. They just don't do it. They use it's a real antiquated system that there's a lot of them will hold on to. Right, because that's the brought up into
it. And they do recruit it as an attractive profession, and I view this through the very short lens of my 2 oldest sons getting out in the workforce, and having friends that go into investment banking, and having friends that go into accounting, and how quickly those friends are saying, "Wow, you're in Jackson Biotech, Luke is in marketing," and they see them having responsibility and having a fulfilling job and having fun with their work. And it doesn't take long if you're, in year 2 with a CPA firm and you're just getting bombarded with work that is good work, but from a personal experience perspective, and this is, totally anecdotal, it's a tiny data pool, but, you're seeing kids say, and I know that, CPA firms retention past 3 years, they're having a real, that the data is a real problem retaining. They attract young talent, but they can't retain them because of the way the work is structured. Anyway, guys, I'm going to jump off in 4 minutes just as a heads up.
Okay, good.
This is a great conversation.
So, George, I have a question for you. Going back to growth stuff like that, I think I sent you an email on this, but the strategic growth plan is there a document for that now? I think you were working on that, right?
Yeah, we have a document, and that was put together about 2 years ago. And it was put together by a group of us. And so what we're doing now, and I welcome your feedback, everyone's feedback, is to give it a refresh. The document as it stands works well. It takes some work. There's no easy button, but it is there, Mike, and it is absolutely good and relevant. And we're just doing is saying, all right, well, if we gave this another look, what might we change? And then what will we, what if anything will we?
So this is not the strategic capacity analysis report, right?
That's correct. So now that we have that strategic capacity analysis report, now how do we leverage that data, those conclusions in the plan? And as you know, we are taking, so that plan is more of a narrative. It has bullet points, executive summary. It draws on data, but it is more of a narrative. how do we then take what we're working on is, if I could click on my mouse, I have the engineers are well down the road to connecting that data, those conclusions, to project management. And that's going to be, ultimately, that's, as an operator, that's what I want to see. I want to have an easily intelligible plan and a scoreboard that tracks how I'm doing on that plan. And those are the tools for change. So the strategic growth project plan is a narrative, and what we're doing is we're simply going back and saying, all right, guys, now that we have this new trove of data, how do we best incorporate it into that plan? Make sense?
Is that, yeah, it makes sense. But so that the thing we're talking about then is some kind of, I don't know, I'm using the wrong phrase, but it's going to be some kind of deliverable. Is it a printable?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what the SGPP, the Strategic Growth Project Plan, comes out of is, everyone in the community is out writing, delivering a plan. And, a lot of those end up on my desk. And we took those and we pulled them apart and said, okay, what are the common elements? What are the best elements? What are the best practices? All right, let's put that into an SGPP. That's just it was originally designed as guidance. Guys, here's what the community thinks should go into a strategic plan. Here are best practices. Some of it based on my own experience, a lot of it based on on Ed, on Larry, on Andy, the names that a lot of the people, some people who are no longer in this community. And so it is designed as a deliverable. Now we need to have that deliverable better reflect the strategic capacity analysis that Clarity generates, and it will. And this is where.
So when do you expect that to be available?
Within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see it.
As long as you're going to tell me it's not going to be coming before the 1st of next year.
Long before the 1st of next year. No.
Okay.
I know you got to go, George.
Thanks,
Take
George.
care.
Appreciate the time.
This was a great
now.
conversation, guys, on a really important and timely topic. So thank you. And I will talk. I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys. I'll see you around campus.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you,
Okay.
guys. There it is. Thank you, guys. I'll see you soon.
Okay, see you, George.
Bye.